Poppy Playtime is a new indie horror game revolving around Playtime Co. and an ex-employee who comes back to the factory after years. The employees went missing and vengeful toys are awaiting you in the abandoned toy factory. This game is terrifying and honestly still very reminiscent of FNAF. But what scary theories revolve around Poppy Playtime? That's what we're exploring today. Greetings gamers and welcome back to Top 10 Gaming. I'm Connor Monroe, this is the Top 10 Scary Poppy Playtime Theories. Let's do it. That's right, we're talking about it. And at 10, the cult. Whenever there is a case of a missing group of people in any game, not even just horror games, the classic question of were they in a cult will be asked. And honestly, it seems like it could be possible in Poppy Playtime, just more unlikely than some other options. Even if those options are stranger, which is weird. But I do see a possibility where these workers ended up forming some sort of cult surrounding the perfect toy of Poppy before trying to recreate her success in other toys only to fail miserably. They would end up worshipping Poppy like a god if this was the case. And what do we see? We see a room built specifically for her in a glass case, with a huge Poppy painting around the front door. While yes, this would end up later having graffiti that said not to enter this room, this doesn't seem like the actions of a group that fears Poppy. Why not encase her in steel to make sure that she couldn't escape? Or why paint a giant Poppy around the door when you could just pull a Henry Emily and seal the room off? It doesn't make sense, unless, at least for a time, they worshipped her like a goddess. And at 9, death messages. The messages we get when Huggy Wuggy kills us are certainly interesting. They set the theorist's senses off instantly since there is certainly more going on here. With lines like "don't die just yet," "more lives are at risk than just yours," "it's too early to die," and "I need you alive," there are bound to be many questions just based on us dying. Like, who's talking to us? Are they resurrecting us or are we actually dead? And what the hell is actually going on here? These are all good questions, and most people assume that Poppy is the one who's talking to us during these death screens, but I'm not so sure if this is the case. It could simply be another character we have yet to be introduced to. With only one chapter out of seemingly 6 currently playable, we don't really know everyone we need to. It could easily be something like the owner of the company who's hiding deep in the bowels of the building who's using a loudspeaker, or someone or something with supernatural abilities who's constantly resurrecting us. And at 8, next, villains. With Huggy Wuggy seemingly meeting his end in chapter 1, we have more chapters that will be needing villains. However, who will these villains be? It's possible that these villains will be the other toys that we've seen around the facility in chapter 1. The Pink Huggy, Brawn the Dinosaur, Boogiebot, Catbee, and Candy Cat are all possibilities for the next chapters, as well as Poppy herself, who will probably be the final villain if she is one at all. More on that later. But who will be the villain of chapter 2? MatPat seems to think that it's going to be Cappy, who was the only other toy featured on more than a poster in this chapter, with the exception of Poppy herself, since we have to make a Cappy toy to move on with the game, and then that toy seemingly disappears. However, I have no idea how they plan on making Cappy scary. Like, what? It's half bee, half cat. How is that supposed to terrify me? Unless, like, I have allergies to both. Like, Huggy already looks scary enough. Just the fact that he's like a monster, and then you can just add teeth to it. But a cat and a Catbee? It doesn't really seem that freaky to me. Although I will be interested to see how they do it. And at 7, Grab Pack. The Grab Pack is certainly an interesting item. Used as in essence giant sticky hands, the first half of the Grab Pack is granted to us at the very beginning of the game and is a key mechanic in the game, being the main way to solve most of the game's puzzles. However, one of the big questions is why do we need this Grab Pack? Other than electricity puzzles, grabbing tape, and blocking progression, why are we limited to using this? It's almost as if we don't have any actual hands to use, but that raises the question, how are we able to use the Grab Pack if that was the case? Since we would normally just assume that we're just pulling triggers on some handles or something. But even before getting the Grab Pack, we don't see any of our body, not even our normal hands. And why is that? Well, maybe there's more of an explanation coming later on. And at 6, Poppy's a good guy. The first chapter of Poppy Playtime ends with us opening Poppy's display case with the lights flickering and her saying, "You opened my case," in what also seems to be an almost thankful tone. This is also something that MatPat mentioned in his game theory episode on the subject. This also relates to who Matt believes is behind Poppy, or I guess who Poppy really is, and that's Stella, a woman who is obsessed with trying to live forever and bringing joy to children like her toys did for her. And what better way to do that than being turned into a living toy? Well, there are actually plenty of ways that you could do that don't involve having to convert your living flesh into a doll that talks to kids, but hey, it's an indie game. Plus, if Stella wanted to be a toy, she wouldn't be mad about being turned into one, she'd be delighted. And now, thanks to you opening her door, she can go and bring that joy to children. Or will she? Halfway through into number 5, global massacre. The idea that there is something bigger at stake here is another idea that's been floating around the internet. Thanks to the death line of "there are more lives at stake than just yours, wake up," which could also allude to dream theory, but I'm not touching that one with a top 10-foot pole. Get it? The global massacre idea started because, well, what else is going on to cause more lives to be at stake here other than toys actively trying to kill you? Plus, this only happens if you die and don't get rid of Huggy Wuggy at the end of the chapter. Since he bashes his head multiple times, I'm going to guess that they're definitely dead at this point. Plus, this thing is like 11 feet tall and definitely wants to go on a mass killing spree, with one section of the trailer suggesting that it just kills for fun and doesn't require sustenance. So what's the overall goal here? Well, we still don't know. With only one chapter out, we can't really gather all that much evidence, but alas, we're guessing anyway. Mostly because I wanted a break from FNAF, and this seems like something you'd all be into. And at 4, Poppy's hair. Poppy's hair is meant to smell like poppies because that's her name. However, poppies themselves don't really have much of a smell unless you're talking about the ones made for a certain kind of substance. Or the ones used to make a certain kind of substance, I should say. Those poppies are used for various illicit substances, however, they are also good at putting people to sleep. It was even used as a form of treatment when medicine wasn't really as advanced as it is today. So, could this have been the point behind Poppy's hair? Could this doll have actively been selling to parents instead of their kids? If this doll was shown to be able to keep kids calm or put them to sleep, I'm sure a load of parents, especially in the 1960s when Poppy was invented, would have been down for it, especially if the kids were like me. I literally at one point tried to run into traffic. I knew what adulthood would be like. And we know that the company behind Poppy and the others are certainly not the pinnacle of corporate decency. Definitely not setting the gold standard for how to treat their employees, so is it possible that they could have done this and not really cared about the consequences? It's an indie game. Absolutely. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, people are toys. One of the biggest theories that I've seen that seems to be going in the right direction is that the monster toys we've been dealing with are actually humans. But not the classic humans possess these toys way, but rather they're made of human flesh and bone. These are intentionally a human monstery toy hybrid that was an attempt to recreate the success of Poppy. It's worth noting that when we take care of Huggy, he does bash his head off multiple things on the way down. However, these hits also end up leaving blood behind. And Poppy's eyes are really realistic. Now, an animatronic wouldn't leave blood behind if it's bashed its head, so that removes the possibility of these being animatronics, thank God. So the only thing that would really leave blood is an organic being with flesh. And as we learn in a moment from the trailer for the game, Huggy Wuggy has a digestive tract. When showing Poppy's voice box, it's covered and even dripping with blood. So what's the deal here? Well, the employees did disappear, right? And the game even tells us that they never left the building, so where are they? They're in the toys. But ultimately, in at number 2, FNAF Multiverse. Okay, look now, I know this is going to make a lot of Poppy heads mad, but this is something that this channel is in essence obligated to talk about. Now, do I believe FNAF and Poppy Playtime share a universe or even a multiverse? No, not at all. But am I talking about this for the thumbnail? Abso-freaking-lutely. So, right off the bat, there are some similarities that we should point out between Poppy Playtime and FNAF. 1. They're both indie horror titles. They both also feature childhood figures turned killers, and that in some way all of these characters are human, be it by possession in FNAF's case, or by literally made of flesh to be your tormentor like in Poppy Playtime. However, are there any other similarities that we can use in-universe? Well, while there may be no references to FNAF in the games from what I could tell, this does seem to be the story of FNAF just on another Earth, where instead of making Circus Baby and the Funtime animatronics, William could have just made the Poppy doll instead. Notice how the two share a similar design. And while yes, Poppy was made in the 60s, maybe this is just what happened if William was born earlier than he was supposed to be. I mean, of course, this is all for fun, and is most certainly not the case, but it's fun to speculate anyway, right? Plus, thumbnail. Finally, in number 1, we are a toy. This is such an interesting theory that I felt the need to talk about it. The idea that we ourselves are a toy is so seemingly off the rails that it fits perfectly within this story. If people are being turned into monstrous versions of these toys, and Huggy Wuggy was Experiment 1006, what if we are Experiment 1007, or are going to be 107? Starting off the game, we don't really see any of our own body, not even our hands like I mentioned before, only being able to grab stuff with the grab pack given to us at the start of the game. So why would we not be able to use our own hands if we are human? That would just be instinctive, right? Well, it would make sense if we were a toy, but the game didn't want us to know that yet. It could also explain how we're brought back to life over and over, and that one death line of death isn't permanent, since being a toy combined with a human would most likely not let us die permanently, especially if there is some other entity that's able to resurrect us. Now, I don't know, but being a toy sounds like it could certainly be where this game is going. It wouldn't be that big of a leap, honestly. And after dealing with FNAF for like, what, 2 years at this point, I feel like this is not that big of a deal. It hasn't been 2 years, it's been like 1.5 maybe. There we have it, friends, the top 10 scary Poppy Playtime theories. Have you played Poppy Playtime, and would you like to see us play it on the channel? Be sure you let me know down below. Please say yes so I don't have to do more FNAF. Thank you all so much for watching. I have been and shall remain Connor Monroe, and I'll see you in another video. Who is most likely Susie, as I discussed? No, it's not Susie. It's Sally. That's the FNAF coming out. Who is most likely Sally, as I discussed earlier? Is it Sally or Stacy? Who is most likely Stacy, as I discussed earlier? Okay, use whichever one was right. I'm pretty sure it's the second one. It's not Susie, but I don't think it's Stacy.